Welcome to Know Your Balls podcast, the podcast where you got to know your balls. It's essential. It's the bottom line for this. And I'm Avi Karloff. With me again is Robbie Williams. Robbie, back with the Detroit Tigers. How are the Tigers doing these days? Not too well, right? I mean,
they're hit and miss. You know, that's baseball.
A lot of miss, though.
Well, statistically speaking, most players miss most of the time. So I'll let them have it.
Statistically speaking, they're 10 games under 500. But
those are the statistics we don't want to talk about. We just want to talk about how it's okay. It's okay to miss sometimes.
Okay, well that's the motto of the Detroit Tigers. Then it's okay to miss. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Just we have memories.
I love how we're all just starting always. Because of your Tigers hat, we're always starting off talking about the Detroit frickin' Tigers.
I should start wearing a different hat.
Yeah, we got to start with the Detroit Lions hat.
No, there's not really a good Detroit hat to put on right now.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Hey, we got a lot to talk about. Football, obviously, 365 days a year. We got to talk about that. The USFL. We got some news about that. Also, there's another Manning that is coming up. That's an exciting player to talk about. Also, the NFL trying to expand its borders even more into Germany. We got some stuff to talk about in terms of broadcasting with the legendary, the GOAT, Al Michaels, and Amazon. We have, and then of course we have a number of NBA topics. The postseason is in full swing. We're gonna expose our terrible first round predictions here. Robbie, I wrote yours down and wrote mine down, so we're on full blast today, my friend. In addition to that, though, some moves throughout the NBA. Portland and Boston making moves. Terry Stotts and Portland have agreed to part ways, which means they fired him, in nice words. And there's a big hierarchy shakeup in Boston, which we'll talk about as well with Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge. Damian Lillard, although he is no longer in the playoffs, feel like we're obligated to talk about a man that great. The Lakers are gone, which is wild. LeBron's out in the first round. And then, of course, we look ahead to the second round series, and we'll talk about what we think is going to happen. So we got some football, we got some basketball, and because I had to pick on Robbie and his Detroit Tigers, we got snuck in a little bit of baseball as well. So we're really making the rounds here. Robbie, before we get to all that, we got to thank Tell ABQ, thank the good people in Albuquerque. Download the Tell ABQ app and onto the podcast section. You can listen to this podcast, Know Your Balls, and other great Tonique podcasts. Robbie, the USFL is back. The USFL stands, I believe, for the United States Football League. The first incarnation of this league failed. This was in the mid-'80s when they decided to move their football games to the fall to directly compete with the NFL. And surprise, surprise, it didn't happen. It didn't last only 3 seasons. And so now they're bringing the league back as an 8-team league that will play starting in the spring of 2022. Fox Sports will be broadcasting games. They also own a minority equity stake in the league. So I mean, this is obviously the non-NFL football leagues have not had the greatest track record. Your thoughts on the USFL's return?
I think it's kind of funny considering the reason that the USFL originally decided to compete with the NFL?
Probably money.
Well, no, it was Donald Trump's idea. He bought the league.
Oh, that was this league. Yeah.
Yeah, he literally bought them or bought some stake in it or something like that and made them directly compete with the NFL. Nobody wanted to do it. It was just him. And he just made it happen and then just blew everything up. So
it's coming back to me now. Yeah.
It's kind of funny that, 6 months after his presidency is over, the USFL makes a comeback. I don't know. It's kind of interesting timing.
Do you think this league, now that it's like in the spring, because I know the XFL like had another little run, it folded, but now like Dwayne the Rock Johnson's in charge of
Yeah.
it now, and they're going to be coming back potentially. Like, I like this is like a very weird secondary football ecosystem, right? Like, it could, I think it will definitely be good for the sport, but it's like, okay, we got to start to build some regularity in the calendar.
Yeah. Remember when ESPN was going with arena football for a little bit, and they released like a video game for arena football too. So the
Yeah.
history of secondary football leagues is pretty interesting. They're probably gonna fail at but I feel like the USFL has a better chance of lasting than the XFL, just because I feel like they might be taking a more traditional approach to football versus the XFL was trying to change rules and stuff like that. They had like a double forward pass. There's a couple quirky rules. I'd have to look them up right now. Fun, too weird.
I want to know that you don't think that the XFL is more successful?
I think if it's
pretty
competing
successful, it's like when it came back, and I think the fact that it has a guy like Dwayne Johnson.
No, Dwayne Johnson's going to be with the XFL, not the USFL.
I thought that's what I think. Robbie had just said that he thinks the USFL has a better chance of being more successful than the XFL.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's like betting against the Rock.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like people, if you put football in its traditional form with the same rules up against football that's kind of designed to be more like an arcade style of football, I feel like people are going to watch the especially with their deal with Fox, and Fox being a part owner, and it just seems like they've got a better foundation to work with. I liked the XFL when that happened. When they brought that back, I watched those games and I thought they were pretty entertaining. I thought it was nice to give players who aren't top tier talent an opportunity to still play the game they love and show us all what they can do. But I think I don't see both leagues, at the very least. I don't see both leagues coexisting with the NFL and college football. It just seems like a lot.
I don't necessarily view these leagues as competition to either league, especially not college football. Like, there are guys that are like that took, in the brief time that the XFL was back, there were a couple of guys who made it to the NFL. Like, there was like some safety that the Panthers drafted in like the 4th or 5th round, like, who like played in the XFL. And there was a quarterback, I think the Panthers also signed, PJ Walker, I believe.
Yeah.
Who played in the XFL. And almost like if they're not ready for the NFL, or if they want to circumvent this, like the system, so to speak, this offers another path to the top. I definitely think it's tough to have two of these kind of football leagues. I definitely think at least one will fold relatively soon. Got to start placing bets right now, I guess. If you gotta start putting it down, what you really think. So again, if we're able to get a consistent football team, like a football league in the spring, I'm all for it. Whether it's like more gimmicky arcade, but the traditional stuff. Either way, I think they both have their good qualities. So I'm excited to see that. Someone who I don't think will be playing in either one of those leagues and who will probably be going right to the NFL is Arch Manning. Arch Manning, if that last name sounds familiar to you, it's because he is the nephew of Eli and Peyton Manning, and the grandson of Archie Manning, Archie Manning, grandson of Archie Manning, who was the New Orleans Saints quarterback way back in the day. Listen, Arch Manning, every school in the country wants this kid. 5-star recruit. He's getting, offers from Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, LSU, USC, like everyone, Texas, like everybody on planet Earth wants this guy in their program because he's great. Like he's a 5-star recruit and he's got the Manning name, and that like immediately elevates the brand of your school. So I mean, I'm not necessarily like asking for a prediction of where he might go, but like how do you like? I can easily see this as like, okay, he's the new face of college football. They're gonna make him the new face of the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be seeing a Manning playing in football from now until the end of time if they just keep popping out kids that are this good. But
Factory.
I like that he's named after his grandfather. He's not fully named because his grandfather's Archie, I believe. He has the IE at the end, so he's just Archie. And another random fact is I think his dad is the funny Manning, the non-football talented Manning.
Cooper Manning.
Yeah, he does the funny show on the funny bits on Fox Sunday now, I think. So he must have a sense of humor too. So he's gonna be a great leader. I don't know. Definitely happy to see a Manning continue to play because Eli and Peyton both and their dad are class acts.
Yeah, so he's Manning. He's expected to visit in the month of June. Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, SMU, Texas, all those schools. He's going to visit them during this month. So let the recruiting season begin, and those like shady under the table like deals that like you normally see when in recruiting. I feel like that won't really apply to Arch Manning because it's like, what can you offer him? Because like he's never going to need money, right? Like he's never going to need money. Let's just get that out of the way. If anything, it's just because he's going to be a lot of people project he's going to be a great quarterback one day in the NFL. But obviously he's a Manning. Like what? And he doesn't need like a new platform to like be seen because people will tune in to see the nephew and the grandson of great Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I'm very interested to see like I wish I would like see like, okay, after he commits, like, okay, why this school? And so I'm very, wherever he goes, I'm very interested to see the reason that he gives for going to said school. Maybe he goes to Ole Miss because that's where Eli went. That's where a lot of his family went. I think his grandfather went there too. Peyton Manning went to Tennessee. Also, I mean, he's a Louisiana kid, I believe, and LSU would be a really good school for him. So I'm interested to see where he goes but really like the reasoning why. Because again, like that under the table stuff, it might not work as well with this guy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great point. It will be definitely interesting to see. Maybe he'll go to his home what do you say, Ole Miss? Not his hometown. I don't know how to say it.
LSU?
His grandfather's alma mater, I guess.
Yeah, Ole Miss. Yeah.
Tradition or whatever, but instead of going to one of the larger programs like Alabama or Clemson, because he could bring clout somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Just on his own, just with his name.
Like if he went to like SMU, like that'd be, that would be like the biggest thing that program's had in years. Yeah, 100%. So
he could almost help with their recruiting.
Yeah, we got
coming in and be like, hey, do you want to play with a Manning? To some wide receivers or whatever.
Yeah. More eyeballs, on your games. You'll get scouted better. Maybe you'll get drafted higher. All that stuff. So yeah, I'm very interested to see where he goes and why he goes there. Moving up to the National Football League. The National Football League is apparently looking at several cities in Germany to host games in the future. The NFL, they've played 5 games in Germany all time. They also hosted a preseason game, I think consistently there for a couple of decades, from the mid-'80s to the mid-2000s. The NFL They went to Germany for 5 consecutive games from 1990 to 1994. They haven't returned since, but they're trying to up their ante in terms of keeping their Europe fan base engaged. They obviously have those games in London, as is. Jacksonville Jaguars seem to love London. I'm curious, Robbie. Like, what is like the biggest appeal for like trying to get these, I guess, games in front of these European audiences?
I really don't know. They annoy me personally as an American fan because the games are at like 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. So you're kind of alienating your American fan base, but they usually send games that I don't really want to watch over to Europe. So that's another thing. But I think it's really interesting that we used to be consistently playing games there, and just like stopped, and then we went back to Europe and started playing in London instead of like, why now? Like, why weren't you pushing kind of more of a a European wide sort of, a game here, game there. It's definitely very interesting. I don't really know why they're trying so hard to get. I feel like Germany doesn't want to watch football. I don't know. I've never been to Germany. I have German ancestry, but I don't. I feel like if they wanted to watch football, nothing's stopping them. And putting a game over there is not gonna really, with the internet and everything, boost people's ability to like watch the game.
You brought up a couple of really good points, and I think you touched on some important things. I think one thing that it kind of like triggered a memory with me. Like you said, like they schedule a lot of games in London that like you probably don't want to watch anyways. Like I remember I'm old enough to remember when the Browns were a sorry team, and they had a game. I think it might have been the 1-15 or the 0-16 season. I don't even remember. But like, every NFL team is guaranteed one nationally televised game. Well, the Browns had a 9 a.m. game in London, and that counted as their nationally televised game. And I woke up and it was halftime, and they were down like 2 touchdowns. I think they were playing like the Vikings or something. So it was like, it was like a game that like, did you really even want to watch it in the first place? And that was my own team. And again, you're right. Like, why now? Like I understand wanting to get more global and to get more fans around the globe and push the sport to outside the United States, because as great as it is in America, it's not really the fan base isn't necessarily there when you compare it to the rest of the world. But it's like, why now with Germany? I don't know. And I'm curious to see, there are going to be teams that are going to be consistently in Germany the way that the Jaguars are consistently in London. Like they've really expanded, especially with London. I think in like Madden, you can like relocate your franchise to London. Like that's how, that's like a progression. Yeah. I think in like the more recent ones, it's like, that's how, I guess, far the needle has moved internationally. So soon we may see, something happen, with Berlin or something like that. I don't know. But you raise a couple of good questions, like why now? But obviously the bottom line is always money. I mean, we're not, come on, we know how the world works.
No. I think you could definitely like market to the audience better though, and it wouldn't require, because you also got to think there's there's a certain level of fatigue to traveling that far and being in a different time zone.
Oh yeah.
So it changes, really the play of the players to some extent. But I think you could show a 4 o'clock game here or 1 o'clock game here at whatever time it is over there, which would be later in the afternoon, closer to like prime time. Yeah, night. It would be like Monday Night Football is here, but over in Germany. And then give them a good game to watch, and try to push that somehow through if you can't get it on like cable networks over there, and the major networks, with the internet and Twitter and all these social media apps, I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to kind of find the people in your fan base who are already existent and kind of pinpoint advertise like, hey, you can live stream this game for free on the ESPN app or Fox or whatever, versus just kind of throwing them a terrible game at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's like 1 over there, but still, you have to go to the game. I don't know if they can watch it on TV over there because it's on Fox over here, and what they're, how they're,
how that works, yeah,
doing all that business stuff.
I'll say one more quick thing before we move on. I think I don't know why, but my thinking of the reasoning why they do like bad teams for international games, those are the teams that need fans, right? So if they're bad, like get their fan bases somewhere, overseas. Like if you've lived in England your whole life and the first game you ever go to is a Jaguars game, oh, I'm going to be a diehard Jaguars fan now. Like that's part of the reason I believe that they have so many international games in London. Like they need to get fans. Like they need to get people.
They're trying to brainwash excited little children that get taken to the game by their dads.
Look at these turquoise colors. Yeah, you'll love us. Yeah.
You just have this really awesome memory when you're 4, and by the time you're 10, you're like, I don't know, I just love.
I saw Blake Bortles. I got to see Blake Bortles in person. It was amazing.
The boat.
Oh yeah. All right, so moving on. Speaking of broadcast rights and stuff like that, we have Amazon, who is now, I guess, dipping their entire body, to the metaphor, dipping your toe into this topic. They're going full throttle. Amazon has a deal to exclusively broadcast Thursday night NFL games. They're trying to figure out who's going to call those games. After this season, it will be Amazon. I think this season it's Fox that they're doing the Thursday night games. Al Michaels is a name that's been circled a lot. He's he isn't doing as many games as he used to do. I think they're slowly going to bring in Mike Tirico to take over Sunday Night Football. Al Michaels is the greatest sports broadcaster of all time, in my opinion. He's the GOAT, no question about it. Do you believe in miracles? All that good stuff. Like he's terrific. I think this would be really good if he became like Amazon's broadcaster, because number one, it would make Thursday night broadcasts instantly better, right? You have like the cream of the crop doing this. And also it's like, I guess it's not as, in theory, it wouldn't be as many games, because like I know on Thanksgiving there's like different, obviously like that's a Thursday where there's different broadcast games. Maybe they change things up. They're trying to, I guess, not give him as many games. So like I guess if he did this, it wouldn't necessarily make sense if he did this and NBC, because that's like almost doubling his workload. But apparently, if he did sign with Amazon, he would obviously still be attached to NBC in some way. So I obviously, when it comes to the GOAT, your ears perk up when you see what he's doing.
Yeah, I think if he goes to Amazon, he's got to bring Chris Collinsworth with him, because there's something about their dynamic. I really enjoy that a lot, almost as much as I enjoyed him and John Madden. That's another thing. If we can bring Al Michaels to Amazon, we need to bring Al Michaels back to Madden, because the announcers in Madden suck. They don't suck. They're some of the bigger announcers from Fox. I think it's Gus Johnson and someone else. But Al Michaels is the GOAT, and I think he's probably going to get this deal. But I'm definitely going to be sad I don't want that Sunday night football duo broken up at the very least. I'll be sad to just see it moved from Sunday night, though, because that's just, it's like inside the NBA and then like watching Sunday night football and listening to Al Michael and Chris Collinsworth just have a good time,
I'm telling you, obviously the greatest memory I've ever had as a Cleveland Browns fan was in January when the Browns just bashed in the Steelers' teeth, right? The fact that that game was on NBC Sunday Night Football and it was Al Michaels doing it, like, it's just like he's the soundtrack to my greatest memory as a Browns fan. Just, I couldn't have asked for anything more, and I absolutely love that. I mean, he's the GOAT. I think that there's an upset about that one. So,
Yep.
Al Michaels, the GOAT. That's the takeaway from that that topic. All right, that's football. Basketball, full swing. NBA playoffs are underway, and some changes have already started to happen. The Portland Trailblazers have been knocked out the first round. Terry Stotts, no longer the head coach in Portland. He'd been there, I believe, 8 seasons. They made the playoffs each year. He 402 wins, a 558 winning percentage. He's the second most wins in franchise history. He's the only head coach Damian Lillard has ever had in the NBA. And the Blazers their 8 consecutive postseasons are the current is the longest streak in the NBA currently of consecutive postseasons made. So they did have a lot of success, but this season is the 4th time in the last 5 years they've been knocked out in the first round. That other time they went to the Western Conference Finals before getting swept by Golden State, but still 4 times in the last 5 years. A lot of people thought this was coming. Stotts is on the outs. A lot of people like Chauncey Billups, Mike D'Antoni, Woj even threw around Jeff Van Gundy and Juwan Howard as potential coaches. Damian Lillard apparently wants Jason Kidd, the Hall of Fame point guard, former Bucks Nets head coach, current Lakers assistant coach. Your thoughts on Portland's coaching situation?
I feel like you got to go with who Dame wants, right? I mean, I feel like with no head coach, I mean, even with the head coach there, this is Dame's team, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's, aside from the coaching thing, I could shed a few tears for Damian Lillard. If there's anybody who doesn't deserve to go out in the first round 4 out of 5 years, it's Damian Lillard. I don't understand what happens to this team in playoff time, but it's just so disappointing. So they obviously need somebody to, kick him in the butt once playoff time starts. And
yeah,
I mean, I love Chauncey Billups. As a Pistons fan, you put Chauncey Billups' name in front of me. I'm always gonna advocate for Mr. Big Shot, but I think it's hard to argue with Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not happy, your franchise isn't going anywhere. And he seemed to be like everyone's gonna overreact now and say, "Oh, he should get traded" and all that.
No,
but I mean, he doesn't seem to be that kind of cat. He seems to be that kind of guy who's like, ride or die, similar to Giannis. And let's talk about Damian Lillard for a second. I mean, did you watch that game 5? Like, did you see what he did? I mean, that
you can't try any harder. You can't try any harder.
Kevin Durant called it a spiritual experience, and I think that's like the perfect phrase for it. Because I was watching that game with my brothers, and we had to go down the basement because we kept waking up my mom. Like, that was like one of those games I'll never forget. He scored 55. He had 12 threes, which is the most ever in a playoff game. He scored 17 of Portland's 19 points in that double overtime loss in Game 5. Like, that Game 5 in Denver was just Damian Lillard dragging the Trailblazers, kicking and screaming to try to steal a game.
Yeah, he left it all on the floor. There's a great video of somebody who is sitting courtside during that game. And, I mean, he's got to be 5-10 feet away from Damian Lillard. Dame can hear him. Maybe he's in the zone. He's not listening. But, I mean, you can hear this guy. He's really loud. He's right next to you. And he's just screaming at Dame. He's like, Dame time. Dame time. He must have said it 30 times in a row. I mean, full blast screaming at the, and
it was Dame time.
Almost like Dame heard him, like, "Oh, I got you," and just like pull up 3, done. I mean, when he does that, I jump out of my chair every time. I've seen it 100 times, 1,000 times. I don't know how many times we've seen Damian Lillard do this, and it never gets old. Just the way he just wills his team to sometimes to victory, at the very least to a very stiff competition in double overtime. And I mean, give the guy some help here. I mean, that's Damian Lillard. Like you said, he's this ride or die type of guy. He wears 0 for Oakland. He's been asked about leaving Portland, and I mean, he's made clear he's not interested in playing the chasing a championship game. And that's one of the things I definitely really appreciate about him. So, you know, Damian Lillard, I would have to say is I'm not going to say he's my absolute favorite basketball player of all time, but like he's like, I tune into the Portland Trailblazers more than I tune into other teams just because of Damian Lillard.
He might be one of the 10 greatest players I've ever watched, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. So yeah, there aren't many people, if any at all, that I would trust take the last shot of the game more than him. And he hit the shot that forced overtime. He hit another shot that forced another overtime, and he had no reaction, which is like one of the craziest aspects of it at all. He was just like, yep, that was supposed to go in. Like he was just nodding, like, yep, I'm that guy. Yep. Like he's absurd. And if he wants Jason Kidd as the head coach, I think Portland should listen. Even though I myself have, you know, some reservations against Kidd and his successes or lack of thereof in other stops. But Giannis liked him in Milwaukee, and you know, so maybe if he gets along with your star player, that's what you really need. So Portland, that's a team that will be looking for a new head coach. Another team that'll be looking for a new head coach, the Boston Celtics. I got to tell you, as someone who's living in the Boston area, this sent shockwaves. Not necessarily that Danny Ainge was stepping down. Danny Ainge has been the head of the Celtics front office since 2003 or 2004 or something like that. He built that 2008 Celtics team, which, you know, won a championship. They went to the finals in 2010 before losing to the Lakers. And then he basically rebuilt the team and made the team to what it is today. They had a stretch of 4 years where in 3 of them, they were in the conference finals, weren't able to get to the finals, but he has Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which are 2 fantastic franchise pillars. So the fact that Danny Ainge is stepping down, that wasn't necessarily a surprise. The bigger surprise was Brad Stevens, who's no longer going to be the head coach. He's going to replace Ainge and take over his job. And so Brad Stevens is now going to be choosing the head coach that will succeed him. And that was the part that really, really got the NBA world talking. Stevens, he just seemed really burnt out from coaching. The bubble really took a mental toll on him. The Celtics are, I guess, treating this like a promotion. I don't know if it is, but it's a different job that he's never done before. But the Celtics are viewing this as a promotion. I think way back when they gave him a contract extension a couple of years ago, they said this will allow Brad Stevens to stay in the Celtics organization. And like the wording coming back now is like a little bit like, oh, you know, maybe they were thinking about doing this. They've been thinking about doing this for quite some time. The fact that this was announced the day after the Celtics season ended, the day after they were eliminated by the Nets in the first round, even though you thought they would win, we'll get to that in a sec, that they had this plan for a while.
Yeah, I don't really see it as a promotion, more of a just like kind of putting him where he might be better suited to succeed. Some people just personalities. Some people are just better at firing guys up, being a leader. Like all the qualities you want in a head coach, right? But I think the Celtics have determined that Brad Stevens isn't the guy who's going to get us over the hump. But we like the guy. We like him. He's a good basketball mind. So it makes sense to kind of, and he obviously didn't do a bad job. I mean,
No.
They went to the playoffs and, I think they put up a decent fight with the Nets for losing Robert Williams, Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker. So I don't like to say it's a promotion because like you did get basically get fired. Like, you know, they were like, you shouldn't be coach anymore. You shouldn't do that. So it's like, you don't get promoted when somebody's like, nah, we got a big question mark next to your performance over here.
Well,
but no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so it's like they just need. It seems like they just need to hear the same thing that Brad Stevens was telling them, but they need to hear it in a different voice, and that's like why it's so interesting that Stevens is going to be the one to choose the next head coach, because he I mean, there aren't many people who know the roster and know those players better than him, obviously, and he already has that relationship with the star players, and you know, also, you know, as you know, if you want to frame it as him getting fired as a head coach, you can do that. But if he were to, in 2-3 years, return to coaching, number one, it wouldn't surprise me. But number two, he'd have so many offers. Like he would instantly have a number of teams that would be ready to bring him on, because I think he's one of the best coaches in the NBA, top 10 for sure, maybe top 5. But he really, like, he came in 2013, and he was like coaching from 2013 to 2021, and you know that's unheard of in the NBA today. That's unprecedented longevity that you just don't see in the NBA these days. You don't see many coaches that last that long. Obviously, you have Greg Popovich, and the likes of him are major outliers. Rick Carlisle on the Mavs, but Brad Stevens was in that class of like guys who stuck with his organization for a while. The Celtics, as an organization, are a very stable organization. They have a very good foundation. They haven't. This is easily the most amount of change they've had in close to 2 decades. So I mean, this is a top tier job. Like the Celtics are where you want to be. Like this, they have 2 franchise pillars. They have 2 all-stars, maybe a superstar in Jason Tatum, and they have an organization that historically knows what it's doing in recent memory. They have a guy in Brad Stevens who's still going to be around, who's still a great basketball mind. This might be the most attractive job on the market. Obviously, we'll see what happens as the playoffs come along and more vacancies pop up. But this is going to be a very attractive job.
Yeah, who do you think? You have anybody in mind? I can't think of anybody.
I mean, so Chauncey Billups is another name that's been thrown out there. I mean, he was thrown out for the Pistons job. He's also been thrown out for the Celtics job. So, hey, Mr. Big Shot going up on the rise. Something
Wait,
else.
For the Pistons job? You meant the Trailblazers?
Did I say Pistons? I meant Blazers.
Yeah, I was like, hold on a second.
Yeah,
no. Casey, but Mr. Big Shot's coming back. Well, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Big Shot back in the Pistons. I'll go see that game. Yeah, he's been thrown around. Brad Stevens has also been very vocal in saying that he wants to see the first female head coach in the NBA, or that he thinks that the first female coach in the NBA will happen soon. Cara Lawson is.
He's the one in charge of hiring her, so.
Yeah, so Cara Lawson.
If he says it's going to happen, it's probably going to happen.
Maybe. He said that a while ago. I don't think he said that in like his ending press conference. But Cara Lawson was one of his assistants. She ended up leaving the Celtics to take the head coaching job at Duke to lead their women's basketball team. So she definitely has a history with the organization. Obviously, Becky Hammond definitely has experience. She has been an assistant head coach for the Spurs and Greg Popovich, and she was a great player with the WNBA, a 6-time All-Star. And she was the head coach of the Spurs Summer League team in 2015, and they won the Summer League championship. So definitely some female candidates thrown out there, and I think that would be quite a statement for the Boston Celtics to be hiring the first ever female head coach. That being said, there are also a lot of other candidates out there. I assume that they're going to cast a wide net, but again, whoever takes this job, they're going to be, going right into a pressure-filled situation, and I'm very interested to see how this new coach fares, and Brad Stevens getting to choose his replacement. I think it's a very unique dynamic. And so now to the playoffs and the teams that are going on. Real quick, actually, before we even get to that, the team that's like everyone's talking about who's not going on is the Los Angeles Lakers, and one LeBron James, who had been 14-0 in the first round, never lost a first round series. And now he goes down. The Los Angeles Lakers go home in 6 games to the Phoenix Suns. The defending champs go down in the first round. I think it's only like the 5th time that's ever happened. He's since 2010, every time LeBron's made the playoffs, he went to the finals.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
that's not happening anymore. And this is also going to be, I believe, the first finals since 2010 with no LeBron James or Steph Curry. So there's like a whole lot of like, okay, we're in a new reality in the NBA now.
Yeah, the league is evolving. We're at that like tipping point. I think I saw a little gray patch in LeBron, the side of his head right before tip off in that last game, and I was like, I honestly didn't see that the games before. I think it just popped out in the last game, and it was like, oh, he's old now, he's gonna lose. But no, like I'm not a fan of LeBron James. I think I've said that a few times on here. He's a championship chaser. I don't want to get into all that, but
that's a whole other
nice
conversation for another time.
Give up the last like 3 minutes of that game. I was actually surprised, but then I was like, yeah, he knows he's gonna lose. Even if he wins this game, he knows he's not gonna win.
Gassed. He was just like it was like you're expecting that like 45 minutes, 46 minutes LeBron, like they're down double digits with like 7 minutes to go in an elimination game, and he's checking out because he's gassed. Like he's just like he's like, look, first of all, past his prime, LeBron James is still better than like 95% of the league. Let's not get that. He's still like one of the best players in the league. He's just maybe not the top dog anymore, and that's like a really weird thing to see. Like it's like, whoa, he's like mortal, he's human, and it's like that's not like he would drive to the hoop and then start to like turn around and back someone down, or instead of sometimes he just lay it up. Like back in the day, he'd just go right over you and dunk it right all over your face. And now he's not doing that. He has to settle, he's doing more jump shots. He's giving up the ball more, with assists and stuff like that. Not that he wasn't doing that as much before, but like he's clearly a different player. Anthony Davis going down, they really didn't have as much of a chance. There's going to be a lot of soul searching in Los Angeles this summer. But yeah, I mean, it's still kind of surreal to see. Like that's now that they've lost, it's like, okay, it makes sense why they lost. But like I'll say, we're going to talk about our predictions in a sec. The only reason I chose the Lakers is because of LeBron James, and I just couldn't see him. I just couldn't see him losing in the first round. I couldn't picture it in my head. And now here it is in front of me, and it's like, whoa, like this is going to be processing for quite some time.
Yeah, I didn't believe it until he came back. You said he was gassed and he went out, and he came back in and he gave it his all for another like 30 seconds, and then the clock just started ticking down. He realized it was a losing battle, and he just started throwing up threes. And it wasn't until then that I was like, he's actually going to lose in the first round. Like the whole game, I was like, he's going to pull one out of his butt. He's going to find a way to make this work like he always does, make some crazy shots. And I mean, before he was gassed and went out, I mean, he probably drove to the rim with the force of a 25-year-old LeBron, 4 or 5 times in a row. And then he was like, all right, I can't do that again. Like, I can't keep, someone else has to score here, So I agree with you. It was shocking, but also probably the most satisfying basketball game I've watched in a while. Just because it's LeBron. I've just been waiting for him to lose and just get old for so long. I want to see other people do great things. You've had your 15 minutes, man. Let someone else play.
You get in line. There's a lot of people who feel the same way. People felt that way about Michael Jordan as well. I guess one silver lining, I guess, for the Lakers is they coming into the season, they had the shortest off season like ever, with like 70 something days between their last game in the finals and the first game of the next season. So injuries definitely played a part in the entire season. This will be a really long rest for LeBron and Anthony Davis, them to get healthy, get right. You know, there's no bubble anymore. Like, they'll be able to move forward and have ample time to recover. So I guess that's the one silver lining for the Lakers going down so early. All right, the NBA playoffs. The second round of the playoffs is upon us. But quickly, we got to run through our predictions in the first round. AJ and I last week, Robbie, we did a little bit of looking back on it, but now we have like basically the full picture. We both said the Sixers were going to win in 6. We both said, so Philly ended up winning in 5. So, not bad on our parts. We both said the Knicks were going to win in 7. That did not happen.
Nope.
That ended up being Atlanta winning in 5. Robbie, you said the Heat were going to win in 7.
That did not go very well.
And they got swept. I said the Bucks were going to win in 7. So it was not as competitive a series, obviously, as either of us thought. But I picked the Bucks. You picked the Heat. And then I don't know why you did that, but the Boston Celtics, you predicted the Celtics were going to beat the Nets in 7 games.
Somebody's got to do it. That's why I did it.
Yeah, you're like, what?
Because it's like, is 2 + 2 4? If you ask me that, I'm gonna say 5, just because obviously it's 4. So it's no fun if I
Robbie,
I
what's
just
2
agree
+
with
2?
you.
Robbie,
What?
what's 2 + 2? What's 2 + 2?
5.
Okay, that's.
I mean, it's funny. Like, obviously it's 4, but on the off chance it was like fish. If you invert the 2s.
If
It looks like
somehow
a
2
fish.
+ 2 ever became 5, you're there. You get to hold it over everyone.
Exactly. If it happened.
But the Nets did win in 5, and I did predict that, so I was spot on with that. I was also spot on with picking the Jazz to win in 5. You picked the Jazz to win in 4.
Yep.
So
Memphis came out in that first game and surprised the heck out of us.
yeah. Well, I mean, Donovan Mitchell also didn't play in that game.
Yep.
But we'll see how that goes. Mavs Clippers. We're recording this before Game 7, so we don't know who's going to win that series. But Robbie, you picked the Mavs to win in 6, which there's going to be 7 games, and I picked the Clippers to win in 7. So we'll see how that plays out. We can circle back to that. The Nuggets and the Trailblazers. Robbie, you said the Blazers were going to win in 6. I said the Nuggets were going to win in 7. So you got the amount of games right. I got the team right. And then Suns Lakers. I said the Lakers were going to win in 7. Again, just because of LeBron James, that didn't happen. Robbie, you picked the Suns to win in 5. So you got the team right, game off, and I was just completely off. So the second round now, Robbie. I mean, now we look ahead, and real quick before then, I was talking to AJ right before we went on, and I saw something that was like, the teams remaining, as we're speaking right now, the 9 teams that are left in the playoffs have a combined 6 championships or something like that, and they have 1 combined championship in the last 37 years. Like, these teams that are left, like the Suns have never won a title, the Nuggets have never won a title, the Jazz have never won a title, the Clippers have never won a title. Same with the Nets. The Hawks haven't won a title since '58. The Nets, I already said they never won a title. The Bucks haven't won since the early '70s. Philly hasn't won since the '80s. The Mavericks are the only team in like the last 37 years with a title, and that was 10 years ago in 2011. So you have all these fan bases now that like there's a good chance that we're gonna have a team that's never won a title win the title. And like you said, I think you said it really well, like the league is evolving. We're having these young players that are moving forward, and these franchises that haven't had successes, they're now winning playoff series of the like, or teams that haven't won in a long time. So I'm very excited about that. So Robbie, we're going to do our predictions now for the second round, and we're going to start in the East because we, as of now, know what those series are going to be like. The Philadelphia 76ers, the 1 seed in the East, taking on the Atlanta Hawks, the 5 seed in the East. Both these teams won their first round series in 5 games. Robbie, what are you thinking for this series?
You know, the Hawks played so good. Trae Young, really, just evil villain. He really, the way he just stepped into that, really embraced, I'm going to ruin everyone in New York's day. I liked the way he went about his stuff there. But, I'm going to take Philly in 6.
The Sixers in 6. Yep. It's funny. Both you and I said that the Sixers were going to win 6 in the first round. And now we're both going to say the Sixers are going to win in 6 in the second round. Joel Embiid's health is going to be a really big part in this series. I think Atlanta is a very talented team. They got a bunch of young players. I think Philadelphia is just a little bit more experienced. I think their stars are a lot better. I think they have a number of perimeter players they can throw at Trae Young, whether it's defensive player of the year finalist Ben Simmons or Matisse Thybulle, a guy who I think should make all defense. They have guys who can throw at him. I think Clint Capella is going to be a really interesting matchup for Embiid, though, should he play and depending on the amount he plays. All right, so we both think the Sixers are going to win. I think one of the potentially the best series of the year, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets.
Do I want to do it again, Avi? Do I want to do it? It wouldn't be as crazy as picking the Celtics, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I don't like the Brooklyn Nets. I want to pick with my heart and pick the Bucks, but I'm going to say the Nets in 7.
I'm similarly on your mindset. I'm going to pick the Nets in 6. I think if they're going to win this series, it's not going to go 7. I think they're going to be able to close it out. My mistake. Yeah, I think they're going to win 6. Brooklyn has home court advantage for the series, so if they win 6, they'll close it out in Milwaukee. Milwaukee. If any team can beat Brooklyn, it is Milwaukee. They don't have 3 stars, but they have Giannis. I don't see anybody who can guard him. I have never seen a team that plays defense as badly as the Nets go all the way, but I've also never seen a team with 3 of the best offensive players, 3 of the 10 best offensive players in the league, arguably, on one team. So they'll score 140 points, no problem. It'll be easy.
They don't need defense.
Yeah. So although if Milwaukee decides to play big and it gives the Nets rebounding issues, then that'll be a whole nother thing. But as much as I do, I would prefer the Bucks to go. I think everybody but Nets fans wants the Bucks to win this series. I gotta pick the Nets in 6. Western Conference, Phoenix Suns and Denver Nuggets. I am very, very excited for this series. Who's gonna win? Suns, Nuggets.
I'm going. I'm gonna say the Suns in 6.
Suns in 6. Yeah, they have the talent to do it. I really, really do want to pick the Nuggets, but I think this series will go the distance, and I think it'll go Phoenix's way. I think I'm going to take Suns in 7. I think they're just too deep, and Denver's depth obviously took a hit with Jamal Murray going down, and I like all the bodies they can throw. Again, we're recording this before Game 7 of Clippers Mavs. It's tough to predict, but here's what I'll say, Robbie. The winner of this series is playing the Utah Jazz. I think no matter who they play, I believe the Utah Jazz will win. I think they're just too complete of a team. I believe that they're going to beat the Clippers or the Mavs. If it's the Mavs, I think they could win that series in 5. If the Clippers, I think it will be a little bit. They'll have to work a little bit more.
I'm with you. with 5 if it's the Mavs. But I'm going to say, 6. I don't think it'll go 7, but I'll say 6 with the Clippers. I don't see Utah losing.
Well, I'm just excited that we got a game 7. You know, I here I was in the first round predicting all these game 7s, and 3 series in the Western Conference were tied at 2 through 4 games. Alas, we only have 1 game 7, so you know, I'll take 1 over 0.
Yeah,
So.
I was surprised not only by the lack of game 7s, but also, you know, the series that go back and forth. I mean, it was more like my team blows you out this day, your team blows me out the next day, and then we might have one really close game after that. You know, it seemed to be the flow of the playoffs, like just, you know, tit for tat versus game after game. It's neck and neck all the way to the end.
I love it. It's like my favorite TV show is like playing for like forever and ever and ever, and there's so many different iterations and episodes of it, and it's the NBA playoffs. Every night's a winner. So we got the NFL, we got the NBA. It's just wonderful. Baseball will eventually be the only sport, so we gotta really focus up on all of our other sports that are going on right now. Also, shout out to the NHL. We gotta give hockey a little bit of love. They're trucking along in their playoffs. They're in the second round as of now. So you know, shout out to the NHL. Playoff overtime hockey. There's nothing like it. I highly recommend like overtime playoff hockey, golden goal. Like I've never seen. I don't know much about hockey. I can feel the intensity though. So I felt like we had to give hockey their due right there. You know, so I'm excited to continue to watch playoff overtime hockey. That I will say. So yeah, that'll do it for Know Your Balls podcast. Make sure you check out Tell ABQ. Download the Tell ABQ app as usual. Shout out to the good folks over there in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Any final thoughts before we sign off, Robbie?
One final thought. After watching Inside the NBA the other day, and Chuck's got a button now. I don't know if you saw this. He's got a button. Now,
guarantee button.
Now, AJ, I want a button. I want things to happen. I want to say ridiculous things and slam buttons.
Get on it.
I saw that and I was like, that would be really fun. I love watching Chuck do that. And then they had Draymond hit it, and they were like, "You don't have enough. You
have too many rings. You have too many rings.
Too many rings." Yeah. It's funny.
Make it happen, boss man. Check out Tonique on all our socials. You know the drill. Tonique.news. This has been Know Your Balls. See you next time.
Yeah.